Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the fact that at this first legislative hearing that the committee has held this year, that it encompasses these very important topics that we're speaking of today regarding the health and protection of Native children. The Chairman has outlined the details of these three measures before us. S 1797, again, the Urban Indian Health Providers Facilities Improvement Act, will be significant as we look to make renovations, construct or expand health facilities used by UIOs to provide care of urban Indian patients. Many UIOs have reported their infrastructure needs have increased greatly due to the coronavirus pandemic, so I think it's going to be important for the committee to hear how any potential infrastructure needs could be used to alleviate some of these needs. S 1895, the Indian Health Services Sanitation Facilities Construction Enhancement Act, that's too long of a title, introduced by Senators Lujan with Senator Heinrich, Senator Sinema, is focused on addressing the water and sanitation infrastructure needs. The committee has been very active in this initiative. Since the start of the pandemic, certainly we've held some hearings and roundtables to determine how we can work to reduce the tribal sanitation facilities construction backlogs. I've heard from Alaska Native leaders that their communities are without access to basic water and sewage infrastructure. It makes it pretty hard when you're dealing with a pandemic, when you cannot meet the basic health guidelines of wash your hands. We've had some very good testimony, I think, within the committee from tribes and tribal consortia about the need to address the sanitation facilities backlog. We've made good improvements in sanitation infrastructure in rural Alaska, but still about 20% of rural Native homes still lack in-home pipe water. 32 of 190 Native communities are still unserved, lacking access to in-home water and sewer. And so when we say unserved, we mean nothing, nothing. So we know the need is great, but we do have good news in this area with regards to how tribal health organizations have really worked creatively to address some of these needs. Just recently, the committee staff, some of them here in this room, met with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. They were shown various examples of innovative uses of coronavirus relief funds. ANTHC is installing 100 mini pass units. They're doing this in Kivalina, Newtok. There's 7 other communities. But this is effectively a way to help wash hands when you're in a home that doesn't have any running water. So it's a small little unit. It pumps the clean water from this overhead tank and then down into a faucet for a person to use. The wastewater then runs below the sink. It goes into a bucket. What would we do without our Home Depot buckets? And then that is later hauled out and removed. So obviously this is not a permanent fix, but it shows that there's a level of innovation. We're trying to address some of the unique situations and circumstances in the needs of these underserved and unserved communities. When you look at the need out there, it's pretty significant. More than $3 billion needed across the nation for sanitation construction projects, so much of that in Alaska. We've been looking at this issue extensively within the infrastructure negotiations that I've been part of for these many weeks. Many of the priorities that we've heard here in this committee from tribes across the country with regards to water and sanitation infrastructure, broadband tribal energy, these are many of the pieces that we're trying to advance in this bipartisan proposal. The last bill, H.R. 1688, the Native American Child Protection Act, again, very important to make sure that we're modernizing our programs to better address abuses against Native children. We did have a report that was issued by the Administration for Children and Families in FY 2019, but when you look at the data, when you look at the statistics, and you realize that American Indian and Alaska Native children had the highest rates of victimization, 14.8 per 1,000 children when compared to other races and ethnicity. In Alaska, almost half of the over 3,000 reported victims were American Indian or Alaska Native children. unacceptable, just unacceptable in every sense. I spoke on the floor yesterday. We had a bill before us. This was the VOCA fix, focused on the Victims' Compensation Fund and how we're able to ensure that that fund is there to meet needs. I had a VOCA roundtable in Alaska in June, and we heard from many in the victim service provider community. And what we heard about what is happening with far too many of our particularly Native children when it comes to violence against the children, severity of the abuse that we have seen recently. Advocacy groups are telling us that they're seeing more cases of child torture and other egregious, actually heinous forms of abuse against children. So with today's hearing, I hope that we can shed more light on this issue and how H.R. 1688 will help to work to reduce the levels of abuse and neglect of Native children. I'm also going to be very interested to hear how this bill complements the work of what we've done with the Alice Spotted Bear and Walter Soboleff Commission on Native children, where part of that mission is to focus on child abuse, violence, and crime. So good bills before the committee today, and we're looking forward to comments from the witnesses. Senator Schatz has excused himself to go participate in the first vote that is underway, so I'm going to introduce the panel. Before I do, I'll just turn to you, Senator Lankford, or anybody, any members that might be participating telephonically, although I don't think we're participating telephonically. So, Senator Lankford, if you would like to make a statement before we turn to witnesses.
Thank you.